Back again. Yes, I'm back. Tell a friend. Back for another SitRep today, the 14th. I think I actually said it was the 14th yesterday, but that should tell you where my mind's at the moment. Somewhere not in the calendar. But it's definitely the 14th today. So welcome to the SitRep for today, the 14th of March. I was just going through a list of stuff that's happened in 2023, and I was like, 2023, what a rough year. But let's put that one in the history books and Happy New Year's. I'm like, wait, it's only March? Damn. This year's coming hard and fast, and there's a lot going on. So main focus of today is to update you on what's going on with this bank collapse that's happened in the US. It's the hot news, obviously. I've been up since 2 a.m. in the morning looking at this because I wanted to catch some of the market action from the US to see what was actually going on there. Really interesting stuff that's happened. It wasn't the big collapse, which, if you're sort of watching along with this sort of thing, you probably, unless you're watching it from the outside and you're listening to all the pundits who are going, it's going to crash. Yesterday I said, I think that's a dangerous course of action. Like, that could happen, but I don't think it's a likely course of action. And what we're actually seeing here might be the beginning of the end of the financial system that we've all been pretty much expecting. Because if you know how this financial system works, then you would know that it is probably going to collapse at some point and replace the word probably with 100% definitely. Thank you for joining me on Instagram, on YouTube, or if you're listening to this after the fact on the audio version. I appreciate it. Hey, Take the Ride on YouTube, welcome. I am doing well on this big island known as Australia. Chris Fleming, hey, how you doing? Eastern Standard Time, yes, that's where I'm at, in the eastern seaboard of Australia. So I am on Australian Eastern Standard Time. Still daylight savings time, I think, though. Interestingly, Take the Ride, that you are here. I'm glad that you can make it. I have noticed in the comments that you've been putting up comments that you haven't been getting notifications about my little videos. Unsurprisingly, I probably say a lot of words that are not liked by the algorithm or by YouTube or by whoever owns YouTube. Whoever really owns it, if you know what I mean. All right, let's jump into this interesting stuff that's happening this morning. So up at 2 a.m., as I said, looking at the stock markets, looking at all the prices and things like that. The interesting thing for me was gold and crypto were spiking. They were going through the roof this morning. They jumped like it was not even a steep curve. It was a cliff that went straight up. So that was really interesting. I was like, oh, okay, yep, there's some diversification. So then I checked out the stocks, and what I would expect is the inverse to be true, especially with gold. Gold going up, stocks should be coming down, stock market should be going down. Wasn't happening. They were going up and down. It was an up and down day in the US stock markets, according to the Dow Jones, at least. And that's literally what it was. It went up and then it came back down to earth. But I think also what was going on there, we had the announcement from Biden come out. So Biden came out, said a whole heap of stuff. The Fed came out and said, yeah, we're going to back this bank. Don't worry about it. Biden says, don't worry, everything's just fine. The banks are all safe. There's about 4 or 5 main points in his speech if you listen to it. But essentially what he said is every single person who has money in that bank, in SVB, will get that money. So they've backed it up. They've said, yep, it's fine. This is not a bailout, though. Here's the really important thing. This is classic gaslighting 101. For those of you who don't know how to gaslight someone or what gaslighting is all about, it's when you do something and then you essentially, like the rough terms of gaslighting is, well, the technical term of gaslighting is causing a psychological dissidence within somebody. So you're doing an action, but you're telling them something different and you're making them believe the different thing, even though they know on some level that the other thing is actually occurring. That's why I often say, look at what they do, not what they say. So this is a classic version of that. They quite often replace words or control language. And particularly this administration, I've noticed in the US at the moment, is quite prolific at replacing language. So using language in different ways and using incorrect terms or taking terms out or controlling terms the way they think they want it to be controlled so they can control the narrative. So bailout. Bailout is a bad word. Nobody wants to hear bailout. The government does not want to be seen bailing out anyone. So they're definitely 100% not bailing out any banks. No, they are backstopping the bank. Where did this term come from? Backstop? That's something in baseball, isn't it? They're backstopping the bank. So they've said, we're not bailing out. What we're doing is backstopping, which means we will make sure, we will guarantee. So the government has basically come in and said, we will guarantee the money dollars for every single dollar, for every single depositor in that bank. We're going to do it. So that's part one. That's going to lead to some pretty bad things, consequences for that. But I'll get onto that in a minute. So the definition of bailing out a bank is when the bank collapses, the government would step in and put the money up so that every depositor and every dollar is backed up so they can pay those people out, which differs from this case in this key way that they're calling it a backstop. That's the only way it differs. So 2008, people are still paranoid, people are still scarred and traumatized by what happened there. And people can still look back at that and go like, you know what? The government bailing out these banks didn't really do us any favors. It saved some hurt and it's caused other hurt. And here's how it causes hurt. I have studied a little bit of psychology, and I've also looked at problematic or psychopathy or issues within psychology. And one of those things that you look at is addiction. And if you look at any form of addiction, what actually exacerbates or allows that addiction to continue is part of the addiction itself. That it's addiction is not, oh, that person, well, at least from psychological circles, we don't look at these sorts of things. It goes, that person is wrong. They're broken in the head and they're a drug addict, or they're a sex addict, or they're an alcoholic, or whatever you want to label them as. Less and less we look at it like that now. Now we look at it more as a systemic failure that's going on. Yes, the person has an issue. They have a problem that could be conditioning. It could be actually within their genetic makeup. Could be a number of things. Could be all of these things mixed in together. However, in order for them to continue doing that behavior, they need facilitation. So they will look for facilitators to help them out in that. They will often have friends who are like-minded or will allow that. They will have partners that are like-minded or will do that. They will have parents that will cover up the issues that it would otherwise cause, i.e., if a drug addict or something like this, and I think I was watching Canadian Prepper's channel and he made this exact same point. And I was like, thanks, spot on. This is 100%. If you have somebody who's an alcoholic or, whatever it is, they blow all their money, they can't make rent. And then somebody comes in and says, hey, look, I'll cover your rent, like parents or something like this for young kids, classic example. Then that actually just encourages them to continue that behavior because they know they can get away with it now. And that's exactly what's happening with the banks right now. The banks fucked up in 2008 and they got caught out big, and then they got bailed out. All the people who lost money, all the people who lost houses, they didn't get bailed out. The little people, the average Joes and Janes, as I keep calling them, they didn't get bailed out. They didn't get helped out, but the big banks did. CEOs still made all their dollars that they were going to make that year. They might have even got fired, but they still got their bonuses paid out. That's what's going to happen exactly to the T again, because that is essentially what Biden's little speech there has done. Because it's not just SVB and it's not just Signature Bank. They can't just say that's an exception. It's just those two. If tomorrow another bank goes under, they will have to step in now. They have now backed themselves or painted themselves into a corner. They cannot get out of this. So we are now in a situation, a financial situation. You may not have noticed this, but in the past 24 hours, we just switched into a different financial system now. One that is backed up by the US government. So, I'm talking about the US financial system. Obviously, things may differ in your country, but that's essentially what's happened. But remember, it's not a bailout. It's backstop. Yep. So the extraordinary measures that the Fed's taken, it looks about $330 billion that they're going to have to shell out for SVB. I'm not sure about Signature, whether that's involved. Just to put this on a scale too, if you look at all bank failures in the last 23 years, so post 2000, the biggest one was from a bank called Washington Mutual. All right, that was 307 billion when it collapsed. Silicon Valley Bank was 208, I think, billion. Signature 110. So that they in rank are second biggest bank collapse and third biggest bank collapse in the last 23 years. Combine them together and they're by far the biggest. So yeah, we got some issues going on here. That this is why they're rushing to contain this contagion, because that's exactly what it would be. So again, another thing that's come out of this speech, the fact that the government and the prime minister, the president, had to come out and do this sort of speech to tell people, quote, "Don't worry, the banks are all safe. Every depositor will be able to access their money on Monday." The fact that they had to come out and say that should tell you that everything is not okay. Everything is not fine, and that you don't need to freak out and like blow up, but a little bit of worry or a little bit of concern about what's going on at the moment would be wise right now. The fact that they're doing that tells us exactly that everything is not fine. So on the back of this, the stock market, as I said, which is kind of like a crack addict looking for a good time right now, is just looking for good news. So they're like, yes, Biden said everything's fine. Continue on as per normal. And it shot up. At the same time, though, precious metals, commodities, crypto all shot up. What is usually going on when these are shooting up? Number of different things. But generally speaking, especially precious metals with gold and silver, if they're shooting up, that tells us there is fear in the market. And that's exactly where the indicator sitting at this morning is in extreme fear. The needle is in the left-hand quarter of the index, or it's kind of split into 5 parts: extreme fear, neutral, greed, extreme greed. So what we're seeing is extreme fear at the moment in the market. Unsurprisingly, that should be pretty obvious to everyone. So yeah, this is something that you want to be monitoring. You want to be looking at these sorts of indicators and things like that, because it's not a great sign. So even though the US market had that buoy up, that then came back down, and mainly based around the banking sector, unsurprisingly. So here's a fun little fact. Here's a little list for you. These are large, medium to some small, but I would say medium to, wouldn't say large, but knocking on the door of large, some of these banks. This was the stock price drop yesterday morning, US time. Western Alliance Bank Corp down 75%. First Republic Bank down 66%. Customers Bank Corp down 54%. PacWest Bank Corp, which is one that is pretty much about to die, 46%. And that's already gone down like 50-something% in the last couple of months. Zion Bank Corp down 44%. Bank of Hawaii down 42%. Comerica down 39%. East West Bank Corp down 32%. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 banks there. All 8 of those banks, trading got halted. So it triggered whatever the signal is for them to go, there's an emergency going on here. We cannot trade these, because if they had to continue trading, more than likely we would have 8 other banks that would have collapsed in the past 12 hours. But they stopped the contagion. But now, when these guys were open back up, I'm interested to see what happens. If one of these collapses, will the government step in? I think they have to at this point. And at this point, the government becomes the private banking sector. But they can, because they can, print money. So, what's the worry? Who pays for that at the end of the day? If only if communism worked. This shit just comes out of nowhere. We'll be fine. No, actually, people have to work. People have to produce something. As I was saying yesterday, this is all roughly speaking based off a gap between what they kind of have on hand, is probably the best way to put it, and the amount of money on paper or digitally that they have sitting in their banks. So if everyone wants that money at once, then they've only got this much to put out. They're fucked. And that's what Biden is doing. He's like, nobody take your money out. I guarantee it's there. So you don't need to take your money out. Because here's the whole thing. If everyone believes Biden and goes, oh, okay, it's all cool, and nobody wanted to pull their money out, they said, yep, government's got it, it's all fine, then the government doesn't actually need to pay out of that money. That's the trick. But if everyone does not fully believe Biden and does pull out their money, then the government has to throw out that money. And how many banks can they do that for? Well, 2, maybe. What about 3? What about 11? Because that's what we're looking down the barrel of at the moment. Just catch up on some comments that have come in here from YouTube. He says, everyone expects a pivot now. What we're seeing with interest rates. So I know this is very, very confusing if you don't have your head in the markets, you don't have your head in the financial system at all. We've got inflation. We can battle, one of the mechanisms, the main mechanism, I guess, that the Fed has to battle inflation, to stop inflation, is by increasing interest rates. Because when we increase interest rates, people have to start paying more to their outgoings, to servicing their debt, which means they're going to spend less and save more, which puts grander pools of money there to be used. So that's one of the mechanisms they have. However, so the idea that everyone was getting their heads around is interest rates are going to go up and up and up over the next couple of quarters. However, now we've got this. The problem with the interest rates going up is that we've got banks like this who have been doing deals, been putting out money, been borrowing money based at 0% interest, based at 1.3% interest, and going, everything's going to be cool. And all of a sudden, they're getting smacked with 4% interest or 5% interest. And they're like, hey, everything's not cool. So the interest rate is hurting the banks. So they go, okay, can we not do the interest rate? And that's what we're looking at the moment. The market is already looking at factoring in this, and early indications have taken it down by 50%. So that's what we're looking at. So they were looking at 110 basis points increase within the next, I think it was 3 quarters or something like that. Somebody can correct me if they know the actual correct one there. But I'm pretty sure it was like 3 quarters, 110 basis points. It was like this huge jump that we're all looking at going up. And that just went down to 50 basis points, 0.5%. So that's what's happening right now. Of course, if the interest rate doesn't go up, though, what does go up? Well, we can't cap inflation now. So kind of damned if you do and damned if you don't. Plus, what else could cause inflation? Printing money perhaps could. The government, in their infinite wisdom, has come out and said none of the money that we're going to use to backstop these banks is coming from taxpayers. Where does that come from, Joe? Well, apparently it comes from the fees that people pay to the FDIC. I'm like, that's a $330 billion. That's a lot of fucking fees. I'm no mathematician here, but like something's not adding up here. Of course, they also have mechanisms to create more money. So that's probably what they'll do. What does creating more money do? That increases inflation. We are potentially staring down a hyperinflation event right now. The genesis of the hyperinflation event. This is maybe how it happens. So what do we do? Did you just go and pull out that that $20,000 that I told you to yesterday? Maybe go spend it, because if we do fall into a hyperinflation event, not that it's going to happen in the next 24 hours, but that $20,000 isn't going to buy you much at all. As always, my recommendation, what I try and do, is invest in hard assets, in commodities. So into land, into real estate, if that's also your deal. If you can wrap your head around that and you're making it work for you, not just pie in the sky real estate. Into solid commodities as well, in whatever form you want, whether you're actually holding on to them tangibly, or just investing in them, whatever form that looks like, and into the things that help you survive. So land, in order to grow food, and capturing water and storing water and electricity, all those things that help you live. So that sort of stuff, I think, would be the sort of stuff that I'd be looking at investing in right now. A couple more comments here. Peter Rouse says, told you to buy Bitcoin yesterday. Yeah. It jumped up a chunk. Ethereum jumped up a chunk. I haven't seen Ethereum this high since the big fall. Gold, I haven't seen this high ever. Pretty much, I think it might be even at its highest. It was at 19 something or other. So gold and silver jumped up. Silver has jumped up, but it's still, I've seen it higher. If you were, freaking out and going like, shit, I better buy gold and silver. Oh no, it's too late. Well, it's not too late. Like, silver's still, it's still there. It's still affordable for people to buy. But make your own assessment on these sorts of things. Won't the banks still lose on the backstop arrangements? Asked Renee C. Possibly. I mean, the bank's already gone. That's the thing. SVB has lost. The people who work there have lost. But it's the investors, it's the people who deposited in there that the government's worried about, because they freak out and that causes others to freak out. And as we can see now, or as the average Joe can see now, not just people like us who probably look at this a lot and go like, this doesn't make any sense. The bank doesn't even have to hold, in reality, like 1% of the actual money that they have in the bank. It's all ones and zeros that are chucked in there. But if every single person said, I want this in cash now, banks cannot do that. They do not hold that money. In fact, they don't even kind of hold those assets. That's the problem. They've got way too many liabilities at the moment. Renee C says, not just halted for those 8 banks that I mentioned just then, not just halted, it resumed, then halted, then resumed, then halted over and over again. I guess that's a way of what they're trying to do here is two opposing forces. So you halt it, that could cause its own problem. People are going to freak out. Oh shit, trading's halted. Yep, something's going to go bad. No, it's open again. No, it's halted. It's open again. Oh shit, the stock's falling. Yep, no, it's halted. Oh shit, people are going to freak out, try and get their money out. No, it's open again. So, I mean, this on the whole is what they're trying to do, with Biden coming out and saying, no, everything's cool. The Fed just before that said, we're definitely not going to backstop any banks. We're definitely not going to bail out any banks. Yeah, we don't do bailouts anymore. We do backstops. So we didn't bail out. Renee C also says, was following liquidity news on Twitter last night and it was going mental with notifications. Not surprising. Norman Lacey says, our government has its own banking problems because it still doesn't have an approved budget. It's problems. Renee C also says, at the end of 2022, the FDIC reported that its deposit insurance fund had a balance of 128 billion, not enough to cover it all going down. Which is one of the reasons why initially they came out and said, we'll cover everything up to $250,000. Anything above that, you're on your own. Which, as we know now, one of those companies that was invested or had a lot of their money, maybe it was under a quarter of their cash. But anyway, they had 3.3 billion sitting in SVB. That was a company called Circle. What does Circle do? They have a little crypto coin called stablecoin, which is linked to the US dollar. And as I said yesterday, it's always been at $1 because it's linked to the US dollar. And all of a sudden yesterday, when they just all of a sudden were looking down the barrel of like, shit, we just lost $3.3 billion, it went down. And it's making its way back up. But that's not really the point. I don't really care if it gets back to 1. It's proven now that it can drop below 1. And it's shown that to everyone. I think, again, this may be part of the bigger game that's going on. Show everyone that crypto is not stable. Any crypto. What's the most stable crypto we have? Oh, look at that. We've got stablecoin. It's even got stable in the name. It's never moved off $1. Bam, it just moved off $1. And then you could also look at this as the crypto market mounting a fight back against that because of what happened in the past sort of 8 hours where it's shooting up through the roof. So, yeah, a lot of a lot of the minor ones too, but a lot of the major cryptos are going up at the moment. Right. So, what else do we have? This was an interesting little tidbit. Did you know that the Federal Reserve would just stand by and watch the US banking? Oh, sorry. Did you think that the Federal Reserve would just stand by and watch the US banking system completely collapse? In response to the stunning failure of SVB and Signature Bank, the Federal Reserve announced a rescue plan on Sunday evening that is going to radically change banking in America forever. All deposits at Silicon Valley Bank and Signature Bank will be fully guaranteed and will be available on Monday. This article here goes on to say, of course, the Federal Reserve can't just make an exception for these two banks. If they are going to do it for this for them, that means they're going to have to do it for everyone else too. This is what I'm talking about the shift that has just occurred, that we've just witnessed right now in the banking system and the financial system, really. I think this is really rocky ground that we're on at the moment. They've done enough to kind of pump the brakes on the runaway truck that was cruising down the road. They've sort of stabilized things. However, saying that, just before I jumped on, I was checking the Aussie markets, and the All Ordinaries, one of the Aussie indices, is living up to its name. It's going quite ordinarily today, as in it went off a cliff to start off with. So there was a huge drop and then it kind of flattened out a bit down the bottom. I'll be watching the Aussie market again today to see what happens as it now reacts to the US data that came out. The US market that has now shut. But, interesting stuff that's going on there in the markets. And obviously, we're going to have to keep our eye on these banks here, these 8 banks, Western Alliance Bank Corp being the big one. If you just lost 75% of your share worth in, essentially a quarter of a day, I don't know how you're coming back from that. I honestly don't. Yeah, so this is what is taking up my brain space mainly today, is looking at this sort of stuff. I'm going to take a break from it, I think, for the rest of the day, though. Go take another ice bath and a sauna. Peter Rouse says, New Zealand corporate media not reporting on the banking collapse. Interesting. I saw a couple of little things, mainstream media Australia, but I've been mainly tracking this through Bloomberg and Reuters to see what they have to say on it. Bloomberg's actually, I wouldn't say, it's never balanced reporting, but they've been pretty up to date with it. It's obviously their wheelhouse, so they're wanting to be all over it. So they've been doing a lot of live sort of updates for it. But yeah, interestingly, still not a lot of stuff. And I think that is consistent with what the governments would want, why Joe Biden came out and did this, to say, hey, everything's fine, everything's cool, don't worry about it. Because if mainstream media caught on to this, that would mean that mainstream people caught on to this, which means the more likely thing that we would see is people would want to secure their money somehow. They would want to try and either shift their money from cash into something else, which would in effect be a cash run, or they would do a money run. They would or do a bank run. So that's what they don't want to occur. They don't want anyone to know that the whole system is fake and it is built on unicorn farts and wishes. They want people to keep believing, because if you don't believe in it, the whole thing collapses. But you know what doesn't collapse? Perhaps you. Yeah. So invest in yourself. That's my last thing that I'm going to talk about today is just investing in yourself. Can't have all that top end of town is doing it first. Says Renee C. Imagine what you're referring to there is, we can't have all the average Joes pulling their money out because all the 1%ers are doing it first, trying to find diversifications for their cash and moving it around. Once they're done with that, they'll probably release the news. Then everyone will freak out, and by that time it's too late. Anyway, invest in yourself. So invest in things like knowledge, doing courses, getting books and stuff like that. That's kind of what I've been doing a bit more. Like, I'm doing it all the time, but I'm doing it a bit more in the last 72 hours. Like, I've got a massive wish list of books to buy. And so I'm going, okay, how much can I afford? I'll get this one, this one, this one, this one, and this one. So starting to, look at the things that I've been wanting to buy for a little while and going, yep, is this a worthwhile investment now? Yes. Investing in yourself is always a worthwhile investment. Your mental game is number one. All right. Your psychology, making sure that you are balanced, that you are fit, that you are healthy in your mind and in your body. So investing also in your physical ability, whatever that looks like. So I mentioned that I have very recently purchased one of those little saunas, infrared saunas. And hey, if you don't like it, I don't want to hear your comments because I like it. So I don't want to be told if it's bad, but I love it. And a cold plunge pool, that's some stuff that I like doing. Also a lot of home gym stuff over the past couple of years that I've been building up. So in order to physically prepare, okay, so we mentally prepare, we build our skills, we build our knowledge, we physically prepare, we are able to do these sorts of things. These are always good investments. After that, all that stuff that I was saying before, look at land, look at growing food, look at ways that you can shore up your survival needs. Human beings, we kind of need to eat, we need to drink water, we need shelter. So these are the sorts of things that we need to do. We need blood pumping around our body and air going in and out of it. So first aid, medical gear, this is all good stuff to be investing in right now. Peter Rouse says, just checked out all the media again, complete silence. Unless you are prioritizing physical preparation, you are not prepared. Thank you for that, Peter. I agree with that. Totally. Like, it's one of those things. I look at a lot of other preppers online because I think this is needed in the world right now. I think this message is needed right now, and we need to be encouraging each other. And I'm always looking at other people from the perspective of, what can you give me? What can I learn off you? Not from the perspective of some people that like to get on YouTube and go like, I wouldn't get that knife, mate. That fucking thing, blah, blah, blah. Whatever. Okay. One of the issues I see is physical preparedness within the prepper community. Classically, it's been terrible. It's starting to get better, but I really, really want to encourage that within people listening to this channel, and encourage it, get you to encourage it as well to other people. We need to start looking after our physical well-being. We may not have access to the things that we have access to now in the future. So being physically prepared, being physically fit or suit to task is very important. Peter Rouse also says, infrared sauna good. Thank you. Renee C says, gone dry and started working out. Awesome. Love it. Great. There is a huge gap in the preparedness community. Sorry, I already said that. Many putting out really bad information. There is some bad information, but there's always something to learn off everyone. I consider every day a school day, and everyone that I come in contact with is my teacher. All you guys, you're all my teachers, everything. Even the shitty comments that sometimes I get, maybe it's just it's actually a really good piece of information. They're perhaps not framing it the right way for me to take on, but or correctly. But eventually, I usually take a deep breath and go, okay, what can I actually learn from this person? All right, that's it for today, gang. Thank you very much, as always, for joining me. I'm going to keep my eye roughly on this situation as it unfolds. Will it stabilize? Will it continue to collapse? These like 8 banks now that are in the firing line, I think, to collapse next could be pretty bad. Also, keeping a bit of an eye on other markets because Europe market did not fare that well. FYI, Aussie market does not appear to be faring that well at the moment. Who knows what will happen the rest of the day, but right now it's not looking too great. So yeah, that's the problem. US market, okay, that's bad, but the US market, it isn't just, we don't live in that enclaved world. We don't live in this world that one thing can go bad somewhere and we're all everyone else is fine. We're in an interconnected, interdependent world. So when things start collapsing, they're going to collapse big. Headlines: news: wallabies spotted in Otago. Says Peter Rouse. I'm hoping you mean the rugby player wallabies and not an actual wallaby animal. Because if there's wallabies in Otago, that's bad. Marlborough Sounds. One of my favorite spots in the world, Marlborough Sounds. Love it. Good wine. All right. So that's it for today. If you can, get out, work the body. If you can get out, get in the garden, grow some more food. As I always say, remember to keep looking at your preps, keep going through them. That's an ongoing thing, by the way. You are never prepped. You are a prepper. You are in the process of prepping. Prepared is really a relative state. More prepared than maybe someone else. Peter F says there's a massive wallaby problem in Canterbury. I did not realise that. They're a pest there. We're not allowed to shoot them at all in Australia. Wallaby are protected. But let me know, can you shoot them in New Zealand? Because if so, I might book in a holiday and come and help you guys out. Because FYI, smoked wallaby is delicious. All right. Thanks for listening, guys. As always, stay safe, keep your eyes open, and I will talk to you soon. But until then, Semper Paratus.